In progress with Ashley Maria on Play It Forward. We're going to be talking about Friday Night Fright, nominated by Kiko Izumatani. Maria, Ashley Maria, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Would you like to introduce yourself or the film in any way prior to starting?
Of course. So, my name is Ashley Maria. I'm a filmmaker. I'm from North Carolina, but I live in Los Angeles right now. And I made a short, like horror comedy called Friday Night Fright, based on every person's childhood that probably grew up in the South with thunderstorms and the terror that comes with a thunderstorm and watching a scary TV show at the same time. So enjoy.
Cool. Thank you. And it sounds like you had access to reruns of Twilight Zone.
Oh, well, no, we didn't use actual Twilight Zone in the film. Is that what
No,
you're
I mean
referring
in your
to?
childhood.
Oh, in my childhood. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So I grew up, watching Twilight Zone, reading Goosebumps. So that really influenced this short film that's about a little boy watching a TV show, and the TV show basically starts talking back. So it's a little spooky. It was really fun to make. It actually won a DGA award. It was my first student film, and it won a Directors Guild of America award. So I said, okay, I guess I'll be a director. That's fine.
Nice. Congrats. So, watching the film and giving you a little rundown of the nature of the show and really getting into the art and craft side, but really the artistry, my first question is, now you've cut it. It's been while you, oh, no, that's the second question. I'm screwing up. The first
Okay.
question, sorry, rewind. The first question is the initial idea, that initial spark, before you could
Mhm.
even maybe formulate it into words or a storyline, certainly that initial spark of, oh, okay, I want to explore this idea, theme, or I have this image impression. What was that?
Okay. It was actually watching the movie True Lies, with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jamie Lee Curtis. I was watching it with a bunch of friends, and we all kept yelling at the TV, like, "Don't do that! What are you doing, man?" And so I said, "Well, wouldn't that be really funny if the TV turned around and was like, 'Chill out, it's fine.'" And so I wrote an entire script based on that, and set it as like a 12-year-old boy named Andy who is, home alone and wants to like have a super fun time watching TV that he's not allowed to watch. And then things go awry.
Got it. Well, and so, there's so the idea of blurring reality with fantasy and then actually interacting with your own fantasy is definitely something I picked up on, and something
Yeah.
that the way I interpret it. And before we go into the interpretation of it, let me ask you, the writer, the director of it, now that you are a viewer, this is the second question. Now that you are a viewer of it, and it's been time since,
Sure, sure.
how do you see the film? What is the message of the film? How do you interpret it?
Well, I think all of us have this little bit of fantasy in our lives, especially if, after this pandemic, staying at home all the time, we had our minds wandering, our imagination wandering. And I think, I know for me, I tend to spook myself sometimes. And maybe that's why I gravitated towards horror and comedy. But I do the same thing with my other shorts that are, superhuman based, or even just family oriented. Just adding that little bit of whimsical kind of allows you to look at a situation in a new light. It brings you into just this mindset of you're not alone. um this is weird. Nothing's normal, and I think that's what's so exciting about being a filmmaker is you get to kind of process these feelings that you have, or these thoughts, these wonderings, this what if, and you actually get to put it into a movie. And I think, yeah, growing up I totally was like, what if this started to happen? Or what if that door opened and somebody was behind it? I mean, it's not fun when you're 12 thinking that stuff, but that's who I was.
Yeah, no, I think we've all were there. I mean, certainly. And, I think it's interesting hearing you talk about it. I love hearing filmmakers and artists talk about their work in that way. And I know it can be kind of scary at times because you don't want to interpret it for the audience, but that's why I like to kind of couch it in like, hey, what's your own interpretation of it? that's personal to you. Um, and because it's a narrative, it has communicates something.
Mhm.
And it's interesting to hear you talk about how, like, hey, we are all human beings and we all have this fantasy life, and sometimes the fantasy life can blur with our reality, and that's okay. That's all right.
I think that's why so many people are drawn to genre films. They like to have that little bit of spark. Maybe it draws them out of their normal life or allows them to look at their normal life in a different, and I guess, let's also normal, but look at our lives in a different light.
Totally.
I know for me, I always thought of myself as an observer. And so I think that naturally became a filmmaker mentality where I'm watching what's going on and wondering and like, here it is, everyone. What do you think? So I totally agree with allow people to interpret what they feel. And then, I mean, Kostya, you know how fun it is when you watch a horror film with your audience and everybody jumps and you're like, haha, gotcha.
Yeah. It's definitely a rewarding feeling to, get the beats that you actually intended to hit. When I watched the movie and thinking about my life, and thinking sort of about the karmic side of life and the spiritual side of life, which is something I do a lot,
Yeah.
it, I really was kind of like, whoa, that's so interesting when, this character, this young boy, right? He is hypersensitized. He's hypersensitized by fear. And so in this extreme state, like fear, anxiety, mix of both, oftentimes our perception is skewed. And that is something that is universal and can be carried, we can all relate to that. And that's sort of the moral messaging that I saw in the film. And for myself, huh, isn't it
Mhm.
interesting how that happens? And you've got it on this, low comedic level, but certainly we can extrapolate and be like, wow, man, people really can get into self-created and self-centered dramas when they're in this heightened state of deprivation or over stimulation.
So did you not think it was really happening to him? Is that what that means?
You know, I'll tell you, I believe that he believed what was going on.
Ooh.
So
Okay.
it wasn't even a thought in my mind.
Ah,
But that's what I took away from it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now I could tell you all the little things that I intended, but it sounds like you wanna keep it at a
No, go for it, by all means. I'd love to
well,
hear. Yeah.
I think it's really happening,
Okay.
and I think that's why Twilight Zone, I was so drawn to it is because it was putting us into scenarios that could be realistic.
I see.
Yeah.
Cool.
I just don't wanna spoil it. I'm like, "Okay, whatever
Mm,
anyone thinks as they watch it is right, and you know
sure.
that my intention was to actually scare a child." Yes.
That's great. That's great. No, I appreciate that. I think that's a wonderful take on,
Mhm.
the idea of possibility. Anything is possible. And there are times that the barriers are crossed, and how do you um perhaps deal with that? I mean, the people in the television were being nice. They were coming together and rallying around for support.
Yeah,
So I think that's also an interesting um,
yeah.
way that you crafted it.
It was a lot of fun to make. It was made by students, when we were at USC, and, it was so fun to watch the dailies with a class because everyone just kept laughing and laughing and laughing, and they'd look at me with, "How is this gonna be scary, Ashley?" I'm like, "Wait until we get into the edit." And I think humor is something that allows all of us to step outside our comfort zone, laugh at something and not realize why we laughed. But that's why it works in horror so well. And I had the amazing opportunity to be mentored by Wes Craven. Actually, he saw Friday Night Fright, loved it, and told me, he said, "Ashley, humor and horror are like conjoined twins. And when you have a grasp on one, you can succeed in the other." And so I take that with me. And, I think I use humor in everything that I do. In the documentary that I recently released called Pioneers in Skirts, that that actually uses humor to talk about sexism, talk about bias, talk about what women are confronted with in their careers and what do we do about it. So I think it's just it's it allows us to open up and go, what am I feeling? Why am I laughing? Why is that so funny? Why am I uncomfortable? Why is this awkward? Because it gives us this sense of normalcy, like I said, that what we're dealing with, we're not alone, and it isn't what is normal. There's no such thing as normal.
For sure, for sure. That's great. Last question I'll play it forward is, since
Yeah.
you have made this film, how have you personally been changed?
So since making Friday Night Fright, I went on this really great run with it. A lot of people were really complimentary, won a lot of awards, but I saw that I was constantly put into a box, the woman director box, and I was so confused. Why is this happening? I didn't fully understand the industry and why I was such a hyphenate, woman slash director. And it really took its toll on me because I thought I was doing something wrong, that people were only seeing me as a certain kind of director. I couldn't do anything else. Um, so I started making Pioneers in Skirts, and that again is the documentary that just released. It's Emmy nominated, so we're really proud of it. But it did become my next big Odyssey project based on the experiences I had after making Friday Night Fright. Here I am thinking, hey, I'm on my way. But then once I get out in the world and I have meetings and I reach out for opportunities, I get knocked back down, shoved into a box. And that's not okay. And a lot of women were feeling the exact same way as me. And so I started making this film that really turned into a project about what do we all do about these biases, these inequities that a lot of people, not just women, women of color, disability, religion, you name it. What exactly is going on in our culture? It's a systemic issue. Everybody's involved. What do we do about it? So since making Friday Night Fright, I really took on this huge project. It's now out in the world, and now I'm back into narrative filmmaking, and I have a superhero project that I'm going to be making in a few months, as well as a project about divorce, but it's funny. So I think really comedy is my through line in all these different aspects of our lives, because it's when we laugh at it, I think we start to understand it more.
Gotcha. So I hear like you've been, since making the movie, you became more passionate about women's rights in the film community.
Industry. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that was never my intention. I didn't understand what was going on. And it's not so much that I was naive to it. I just kept feeling, oh, that's not going to happen to me. And it did.
Ashley, Maria, writer, director, filmmaker, thank you for being on Play It Forward. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
You're welcome. All right, everybody. Till next time, play it forward. Later.